for dropping by. I am getting towards the end of the repotting that I'm actually going to do this year. This one has nearly missed the boat. This is my hornbeam. This, I had a job to lift it, and given that's not a big pot, I suspect it is full of water and mud and is not draining as it weighs a ton. This tree has lost all its vigour, so there's obviously something wrong. It should have been repotted last year and got missed. It has to be done this year, despite being a little bit advanced. I'd like to have done this a little bit earlier. The leaves are showing, but it's got to be done. Chances are the tree will die if it stays too waterlogged. There was a period of time where this tree was difficult to hydrate, but the problem you get is that, you know, if your media really is soggy and waterlogged, completely waterlogged, you end up drowning the roots, and your tree can die even though it appears to have had everything it needs. It hasn't. It's lost the thing it needs: oxygen, lost air. So it's lost its vigour. A repot should reinvigorate it, and the main reason I want to reinvigorate it, I'll twist it round. That's a sort of, where are we, front view. I like the trunk. I like the shape and the movement in the trunk. I'm not absolutely over the moon about the branch structure, and I definitely don't like the apex because it stops abruptly. That's what I want to work on. I'd like this tree to be this tall. And the only way I can do that is to get something to grow vertical, and nothing will. Everything that comes out near the apex comes out at right angles. I can't get anything to grow vertical. And having lost the vigour, it's not going to happen. But at the moment I can see one branch pointing dead straight upwards. It's just a very, you know, it's that big with a bud on the end. You won't be able to see it. So I just need to get something to go vertical. But this tree used to grow out of the trunk all over the place. It used to be incredibly vigorous, and it isn't anymore. So we need to do something about that. So it's got to come out of the pot. I can see it's wet, it's soggy. Right, but before we do that, we've got an unwrapping to do, which will aid and abet the job I'm about to do. This arrived this morning. We have root shears, and I love it when they do things like that. It's got some of the silica gel in there with, in big letters, "Do not eat." Why would you want to? Right, so we've now got something with good leverage that is designed to cut into media that may have grit in it, unlike my pruning scissors, which are for doing delicate stuff on twigs and orchid roots. And they're scratched to pieces where I've used them on roots with grit in, but luckily, being stainless steel, I can revamp the blades and get them sharp again, which I've done. Clean them up and everything. Right, so let's get this out of the pot. First job. Get the wire off. We have a few bits of wildlife on the bottom, which we can do now. You have to excuse the lawnmowers, but I appreciate that when people go to work, the only time they get to do things like that is at the weekend. But it always seems to be, you know, when it's a holiday period and people have taken some time out and they want to relax, and everybody gets their lawnmower out on everybody else's day off. But yeah, if you're at work all week, that's the only chance you get to do it. And I've forgotten my pliers. I'll be back. I was thinking I didn't need them until I was wiring it back in the pot, but I do need it to get the wire out that's already in there. Need a bit of pull. Let's see if I can get that to come through. Much easier if I can pull it out through the top of the pot. That's one piece. actually. Ugh. Right, there we go. Now, is it just going to lift off of the pot? It should do. It's got no lip round it or anything. But as I said, I suspect this is really badly pot bound. Oh, not as bad as I thought. But the pot is wringing wet. You know, there's actually water in it. There's water in the pot. So no good at all. We'll get that out of the way for a minute. Hang on, I can see a creature. We have to go careful when I bring stuff in from outside because bugs in the outside are not a problem. That's where they live. That's their natural environment. But in here, they can get in on the orchids and do some serious damage. Right, this is just a horrible solid mass. And we will see what we can do starting at the top. Because one thing that doesn't do pots any good is this type of moss. This doesn't, it seems to infect the whole pot even though it lives on the surface. Doesn't seem to do them any good at all. And it's difficult to get rid of once you've got it. You know, the other type of moss, the sort of what I call flat moss, cushion moss, whatever you want to call it, that's reasonably easy to get rid of. I mean, quite honestly, if you want to really do it, then you know, put a chemical on the top of your pot, kill everything that's green. It will do it, and it shouldn't be a risk to damage the tree because those sort of chemicals only kill green stuff. And they're deactivated in the soil, so they shouldn't really do any harm to the tree. Same again, moss around the base of the trunk doesn't look very elegant and can cause some rot. It stays wet. Now, staying wet at certain times of the year can be a bonus, but not in the winter with the amount of rain we've had. I mean, I've got water in here now. This is starting to drain out of the media into the tray now that it can escape. So well overdue, this one. It's the first one of the ones I've done that are overdue that really looks the part, if you know what I mean. This really looks like it should have been done at least 2 years ago. One definitely, probably two. But now I'm sort of, you know, my bonsai trees were badly neglected for a long time. Just about kept them alive. I threw water on them when I thought about it. I didn't think about shading them at any point. You know, they just got neglected in the garden. In a garden that I took no care of and no notice of before I moved around here. But my interest has come back. And as such, I will be looking after them, hopefully an awful lot better. And I've got notes with dates, so that in theory we shouldn't be, you know, we shouldn't have things getting out of hand to this extent ever again. Could do with a little toothbrush or something to get this moss off the trunk. So although this is very wet, it does seem to have some reasonable roots. And I'm sure once they get into a media that drains, they will feed the tree an awful lot better. Yeah, I'll have to get a little toothbrush or something on this trunk. It's funny, I was thinking, a lawnmower in the next garden, the other side of a fence and a hedge, is not the end of the world. I'm sure the camera's picking it up, but I was thinking the one I did a while back, I did a winter job. Let's have a look at all the pots I've got, and let's tangle the curtain up, why don't you? Oh, that's because I haven't pulled it out. Just catching on things. Yeah, I did it was an outside video, and it was geared up to let's allocate the pots I've got to the things that need repotting. And it was one of the training days at the airport, and there's 2 or 3 flying schools at the local airport, and they were all doing training flights overhead, which is obviously, they're quite low down. I mean, they're just doing circuits really for trainee pilots, and the camera really honed in on it, and it really was quite bad. Quite a few people said, "Ugh, planes." Well, you can't shoot them down, can you? I'm not taking all the media off of this. I'm just teasing out some of these edging feeder roots. We'll take the bottom off in a minute, which hopefully I can cut off with my new shears and not having to use my pruning saw. And then we'll get it back in there with some fresh media. If I haven't got enough made up, I will have to break off and then mix up some more. Nowhere near enough. But this is more like a typical sort of repot. I'm not of the school where I wash all the roots off. I'm not part of that school. I mean, I sort of watch the big boys really, you know, the likes of Corinne and Peter Chan and some others. What am I doing? There they are. And you very rarely see them clean off a root ball completely. Very rare. They take the edges and the bottom off. Oh, this is just so wet. And I like that idea. That's the way I like to work. I mean, we've all got our differences and our preferences. But I know that I've watched somebody with a classic example of why it may not be a good idea. And it was somebody actually repotting a tree as a demo, and it was outside, it was in a garden with a little gathering, you know, watching furtively. And because the lady in question was talking while she was doing it, about halfway through she said, and this is a good reason for not washing the roots off, because she was washing the roots off at the time, and then she started doing some trimming. And basically we looked round and the roots had gone totally dry in a very, very short space of time. She said this is a good reason, you know, for not washing your roots off completely, and if you are going to wash your roots off completely, you need to keep them wet. You need to keep them hydrated. Otherwise they will dry quickly because they've got no media left around them. And if they dry quickly like that, they will often die. Oh, this is just mud. That's awful. Oh, I'm sure these roots are going to breathe a sigh of relief. Get some air back round them. And also get into some new media. Because it's so wet, I am trying to get a bit more out of the base here. By taking it off the base here and eating it while I'm at it, I am sort of freeing up some feeder roots that will get straight into new media. Excuse me. Right, how does that look as regards going back in that pot? Oh, that'll be okay. That'll be okay. Right, I will break off now, clean up this lot. Got a spotty shirt here. Luckily it's Sunday tomorrow, so I'll be putting a clean one on. I don't only put a clean shirt on Sundays, but Sunday is traditional for a complete change of clothes. I mean, nobody changes their jeans every day, do they? And a jean shirt like this I tend to think of as jeans anyway, so it gets changed when the jeans get changed, if that's the one I'm wearing. Oh, they worked, they did the job. They saved me blunting my pruning saw. We like that a lot. This is the bit I don't like with bonsai, that I don't get with the orchids. I get muddy hands, and now I've got to touch the camera. I'm not too happy about that, but it's got to happen. I'll break off and I'll come back when I've got some more media mixed up in my bucket, and we'll get this one potted up. I'll be back. Right, what aren't we going to forget this time? Put the wire in the pot. Right, I'm going to reuse the bits of mesh that were there before. There's nothing wrong with it. So reuse that. So I know what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking I want the butterflies on the outside, but it means messing about, so we'll just put them on in the traditional way, which is on the inside. I'm sure it makes a huge amount of difference. But, I mean, I've genuinely caught my fingers on sharp bits on the bottom of pots where you sort of, you know, you're looking at the top of the pot and your hands are underneath. So it does make sense to have the spiky bits on the inside. Right, wire. I'll do it properly this time. One. So I'm going to try and remember to put the wire in first this time in future, because it does make far more sense to do it this way. You can tip the pot right over sideways, that way you can see underneath and the top at the same time. You know, you can make sure that your wire is nice and flat and even under the pot, like that. Just makes life easier. Amazing, isn't it? You've got a piece of mesh there that's absolutely full of holes, and yet the wire can't seem to find one. Come on, thank you. Right, daylight's burning here. I spent the previous part of the morning repotting orchids, so this is like the end of the repotting session for today. Right, wire done. Now we do have a problem, because although I have one tree I really would like to repot this time round, if I don't it won't be quite so bad, because it hasn't been as long as this one was. So I'm putting a fair bit of that in the bottom this time round. And then we will get some media in there. But the problem I've got is that I'm almost out of grit and almost out of that substitute akadama, which I may never be able to get again. I haven't got a clue what it's called, and I haven't got a clue where I got it from. I just don't know, and I haven't got a clue. It's not like I could sort of rack my brains and try and find out, because I can't. Right, let's see how we go then. Just having a look to see if it warrants moving. Do you know what? You won't be able to see because I've put the camera forward, but the problem I've got is that this side, which you can see on camera, has got a much nicer base than that side, which has got this twisted root. I don't know whether it comes from over here, or whether it goes from there over there. This isn't quite such a nice base, but the tree actually looks better from that side. So do I just put up with that not so nice base? I could try and cut it off. Try and cut this piece off. And that would leave that, and that, which wouldn't be so bad. I wonder how difficult that would be to cut off. No, for now, we will put it back in the way it came out. Give it a good wiggle. And hopefully those feeder roots are now going to go into a media that works. Yeah, I mean, I can live without the substitute Akadama stuff if I have to. I can't live without the grit. I can substitute the Akadama that I line the bottom of the pot with grit. I mean, that would be no problem. That would be no problem at all. But I need the grit in the mix. I need that to make sure there's plenty of air. That'll do. Come around the side there. Do the bigger workbench, that's for sure. I mean, I bought a table to go outside to be able to repot on, so that I didn't have to keep clearing up the mess on the floor in here. But it's just not as practical to work outside. It just doesn't suit me. I like being in here. But that does mean I do tend to make a bit of a mess. Do you know, I had a feeling that was going to happen. This wire's a little bit too thin. Now I shall have to put a join in it, which I don't like doing because it'll show. But yeah, I could feel as I was pulling that it was probably going to break. But we will see what we can do. Having pulled it tight already with the pliers, all I've got to do really now is just pinch it. It doesn't have to be pulled and yanked as much as I was doing before. So it shouldn't be too bad. And then we'll make sure we don't pull quite so hard. The other one does mean I'm going to have a join showing, but not to worry, it's not the end of the world. Right, that's that one. Right, and not so much of a bully this time. Yes, was. Trouble is, the last wire I used was a bit too thick, and so I thought, well, let's go down one then. And I think I've probably gone down 2 instead of 1. So this is just, it's plenty thick enough to hold the tree in the pot, but it's not thick enough to warrant a really hard tug with the pliers. So we just make sure it's pinched up, and then that should do. In an ideal world, when you've finished, the wire shouldn't show. In the real world, that often doesn't happen, and it does still show. Right. Poking with the little chopsticks all very well, but there's no substitute for firming the soil down. Right, there we go. Just bring those levels up a bit now. Missed. Think about getting a little brush to sort of brush the dirt off of the trunk, but it's being a bit fussy. First time it rains, it'll wash it off anyway. Yeah, definitely getting low on this. Funny, when I'm doing it in here and it's on video, probably doesn't look very elegant, but obviously when the sun gets on the trees outside, this is the first bit to dry. And when it's dry, it's a lovely colour. It's got shades of pink and grey. It actually looks really nice when it dries, and as a top dressing, you know, it's killing several birds with one stone here. It's helping to inhibit that dratted moss, and even when that moss does start to grow again, it pulls out a lot easier because it hasn't managed to get a hold. So it does, you know, that all works. But as I said, you know, brushing the trunk off and getting the dirt off, the rain will wash that off. So it's not the end of the world. Right, definitely getting short on lots of things. So take a trip somewhere. I haven't even lined up where yet. For the grit, it'll be a garden centre, which is just round the corner. And that's just literally round the corner. That won't take long. Substitute akadama is probably not going to happen, and I'm not paying for the real stuff to stick in the bottom of a pot, and it doesn't have to be mixed in. My mix that I use only uses it because I've got it. I'm using it up, if you see what I mean. Well, now that it's gone, the mix can do without it. I'll just put extra grit in. Right, again I will take the camera off so that you can sort of see the front view. Yeah, this is a problem. Mucky hands on my camera. But we'll have a look anyway. Try not to get the screen grubby, and certainly not the lens. Right, there we go. So that's the view at the moment. And ideally I want another 6 to 8 inches of height on the apex, but I want it going upwards. As you can see at the moment, everything's coming out sideways. My branch structure is sort of okay. I mean, I got this little wispy one here which will probably get cut off. I think I left that on to see what it would do. And all of the branches prior to me getting it have been chopped dramatically. So obviously this was a much bigger tree, possibly even field grown. But things like this have happened on the, you know, on the branches. Oh, that's a dead bit. You know, chops like this on branches, they don't recover very well. Same up on the apex. Some heavy duty chops have happened, and there's scars from previous ones as well. You know, a large branch was taken off here and here. So it's had a lot of hacking, this tree. And it's just a matter of, I mean, these scars like this I quite like. They have a character, they add character. But on a side branch, a chop like that doesn't do it any favours at all. So this isn't the best looking tree when you see it like this, semi-naked. Once it leaves out, it actually looks quite good, because the gaps show the form of the trunk, and all those chops on those branches disappear in leaf cover. So it looks reasonable then, but I want some more height on this tree. I want it to be taller. I've still got this horrible straight bit here. There's no way that's going to bend. But again, I can disappear that in leaf cover. So there we go then. That's my native hornbeam. I suspect if you go back historically far enough, it's not a native tree, but it's classed as you know, a tree found in the wild in this country in natural forests. So there we go. I'll see you next time. Oh, as again, I always forget, if you've got to this point in the video and you're not subscribed, it would be nice if you did so. I am trying to grow the channel, and if you like the video, do the old thumbs up. It all helps the visibility of the channel. So thanks for dropping by, and I'll see you next time.